Welcome along to another edition of Friday Forum Live, broadcasting to you from Point Blank here in East London, where today I'm joined in the studio by producer and Point Blank tutor Paul Crossman, who is going to be giving us a bit of an insight into FXpansion's Fusor and its powerful step sequencer, the Animator. So Paul is here to show us a few different sounds created using the Fusor and the Animator, and also he's going to be putting it all together in Logic Pro 10, making use of some of the modulation possibilities. Also, as always, Friday Forum Live is your chance to get involved, so you guys watching at home, make sure you do post up in the comments section and we will run through all of your questions towards the end of the session. We'll try and get through everything we can in the time that we've got. Just before we get into it, I've got to say as well, as part of today's broadcast, Plugin Boutique are offering a massive 40% off the Dcam Synth Squad for all of the Point Blank students. So just head over to Point Blank Plus and you can check out all the info about how you can get that discount. It's only live for 48 hours, so you've got until midnight this Sunday, the 11th of August, to take part and get that discount. Also, I've got to give you guys a heads up that for this month, during August, if you do enroll for any of the diploma courses here at Point Blank, you can get a free MacBook Pro. So if you go over to pointblanklondon.com and check out the diploma course page, you'll be able to find more info on that and how you can get your hands on one. Finally, just before we get into the session with Paul, we've just announced the winner of our Outlook Festival producer competition. So a huge congratulations to Manchester-based Ipsil, who's won an all-expenses paid trip to Outlook Festival in Croatia and a Point Blank course. Head over to our SoundCloud page where you can find all the info on those different tracks, and then you can check out that in full. So let me hand you over to Paul, who's going to talk us through what we're going to be looking at today. Paul, what have you got in store?
Hi everyone. Essentially what I've got here is the Dcam Synth Squad software. I've got 3 different versions of it running, so I've kind of got a baseline idea, a couple of different sounds running in it, and essentially what I want to kind of do today is to kind of give you an idea of how it works. I mean, Fusor is essentially kind of an aggregator. It means you can bring in different synths from within the Synth Squad range and work them together. On top of that, it gives you an incredible amount of modulation possibilities. So, you know, we're talking a kind of semi-modular approach to this. You know, modulation being kind of the key to getting sounds that are expressive and move and, you know, just kind of stop it all becoming a bit dull, really. Yeah. Now, just to make things slightly more complicated, we've also got it running in Logic Pro 10 and have the Logic remote here and some various things that I've set up on that. So as we go through it, and we're going to kind of go through each sound in turn, first thing I'm going to do is have a quick playthrough of what we've got here, have a bit of a play around with it so you can sort of see it all in context, and then we're going to kind of work backwards and sort of deconstruct. So here we go. So what we've got to start with here, the drums I'm running in, well, it's a couple of things. I've kind of got them running in contact, a little clap in audio. Now the first thing we want to start with here is the bass line. Now, I'll let this sort of run out for a bit. Got Fusor over here. Now here we can see strobe. Now strobe is the kind of the analog synth, if you want, of it. One oscillator, but incredible power with the stacking. Sound coming in now is an example of Fusor, something called Amber, which is essentially like a string synth. The Solina kind of 70s, you know, Jean-Michel Jarre kind of style thing going on. Let that run through for a bit. See, with strobe here, some nice filtering potential. You know, they've done a really, really good job on the sound of this. Now, there's also another sound which I can bring in here. Now, the Logic remote, which I can kind of show you. Everything being kind of upside down a bit at the moment, but we'll get to that. Now what we've got here is this, let me bring it up. Essentially this way of controlling it, completely forgot what it's called just off the top of my head now, but I'll get to that. Where I'm able to assign kind of see that all right? You know, so the thing is with this, kind of get all the sounds in, and of course one of the ways of getting that real feel out of a track is by jamming it through. You know, so what we can then do with this, hit the record button, forget about everyone else, come up an hour and a half later, and then edit it down again, you know what I mean? Okay? Right, kind of the verb. So essentially what I've got, I'll kind of go through it in a bit more depth, but there's various kind of delay and reverb controls set up on here. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to go in now and have a look at the different ways that this works, or I've got this all set up. So, firstly, as I said, the bass line. Let me just quickly solo this up, and again, I'm going to do this from here just, well, because I can really. Well, at least I should be able to. There we go. And I can go into the mixer now, and then from here, you can see everything that I'm seeing here that you can see on the screen is now kind of showing up on the remote. You know, as a slight side thing, any of you that kind of produce live instruments, for example, if you're recording yourself, this is invaluable. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You can leave it all set up somewhere else, sit there with this on a stand, boom, you're recording. So, what we're going to do, bass line, we'll solo him up. Okay. Now again, let me just kind of talk you through strobe a bit. You know, basic kind of analog subtractive synthesizer. Now when I say basic, I don't mean simple, you know what I mean? What I mean by that is we've got the kind of oscillator filter amplifier idea. And what we have here on the left hand side, which actually, yeah, we can see that all right? Yeah. I can kind of zoom in a little bit, maybe make that a little easier. The oscillator itself is, like I said, it's one oscillator. Let me take the filter off. Right here, things have gone a little bit mad on here. Now, the sync here, what we've got here is a hard oscillator sync, which is kind of making it tear. Let me turn that off a minute. Okay, let me... that kind of thing, you know what I mean? You know, I should be doing my EQ tweak when I do that, shouldn't I? You know what I mean? And then from that, what you've got is you can see here we've got a mixer section. Bring that up again. Okay, so we've got essentially sawtooth, square wave and a noise section. On top of that, there's a sub-oscillator. So at the moment I've got a sine wave sitting in 2 octaves underneath, just to give it that kind of real sub-weight. And a bit of a saw, just giving it that kind of growl. Yeah. And then on top of that, we've got the sawtooth being hard synced. Now, this isn't the full story. I'm going to kind of stop this for a minute. I'll kind of come back to this, because the real power in here is what they call the transmod system. Now, the transmod system essentially is the modulation matrix. It's how you route things to other things, basically. Now, if we look at the top section here, you've got the main. Now, that's showing you all your controls. And what I like about this is it's all immediate. You know, no kind of hidden menus. You know, it's all there. Okay? And next to it, we've got these 8, let me just zoom out a little bit, we've got these 8 transmod slots. And in these, if you look at this one, for example, if I click on the first one here, the display changes. Now, there's 2 things going on. What I've got here on the filter, let me just leave that over there, you can see there's a little yellow modulation amount, okay, which I can kind of adjust by moving this up and around. Okay, let me just click onto that there. Now, the way this button works is there's a top bit, a middle bit, and a lower bit. The top bit is what's modulating. The bottom bit's what's essentially, like you'll see it. Okay, there's the top bit. And this is where the modulation, the sort of the modular capacity comes. They've thought of pretty much everything. I mean, so many different sources here. Okay, now the one I'm interested in at the moment is down on these synths, right? You'll see things like LFO, gates, mod envelopes, various other bits. And what I've got set up, I'm going to zoom out on here. Okay, that's just moved over to side for the wrong sync. There we go, let's get back. Is this modulation envelope, okay? So this is modulating the filter for me. So when I play it, if I switch it back in again, you can see the filter's moving up and down like an envelope, right? Which is what's making it bounce, the actual sound itself. But then I've also got it set up so the sync, that tearing, is modulating a little bit as well, right? Not a lot, too much and it's going to get a bit out of control. So that's giving me a really nice basic sound. Now, before I kind of move on to actually what Fusor's doing, the smart controls in Logic enable me to set up, you know, you saw me doing it earlier with that animated sound, right? Where I've got a whole bunch of stuff set up here and I'm able to sort of move it all around. Now I can do that essentially really easily in here. What I'm going to do with it, let me switch back to main. So Command 3 and we're going to bring this up. Make sure my bass line is selected. There we go, let me do that again. And what you can see here, actually, let me just move this out of the way, is a set of macro controls. We've got, there you go, there's a couple of things on here already, but we've got like 4 macros I can use to set this up. So what I'll do is click on this I button, macro 1, learn, and then move the filter, right? Now what that's done, you can actually start to hear it already, yeah?
Yeah.
And if I go back onto this, and back to my smart control, make sure I've got the right one selected. So let's do that, yeah, there we go. So that now means that I've now got control over the filter, right? So it's easy as that, okay? Now of course the thing is I could then set up more of these, you know, and this is where the modular, you know, old school modular synths, the big analog beasts.
Yeah.
The fun thing about those essentially is you just get to play with controls, you know, and you kind of twist things and move it around and hopefully a sound comes out of it at the end of it. You know, it's bringing the fun back into it. Okay, and that's what I kind of like about the setup.
Performance back into it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I think that's quite an important part of it. You know, even if you're performing to yourself at home, to your laptop, you know,
definitely.
dance like no one's looking at whatever the expression is. Now, that's a kind of very quick run through what this sound is doing. But what we're talking about here is Fusor. And Fusor is, like I said, let me bring it around to the front of this, is a place that I can put 3 separate synths. So we can see here, now I was playing around with this before I got here, and I've kind of got another couple in here. You can see I've got 1, 2, 3. But these are the 3 separate synths available within Dcam, right? Mm-hmm. Now this particular sound, you'll see one of them's muted. I can probably mute that one out as well, I don't need it. I've got strobe here. And just to quickly kind of show you what we're dealing with, here's Cypher, which is, I think we can probably say fully functioned, as it were. It's capable of a lot more than just analog synthesis. We can do FM with it. There's all sort of wave modulation going on. Yeah.
It looks like a bit of a beast.
It is a bit of a beast,
yeah.
And I think with any beast, you kind of need to spend quite some time to wrestling with it
Yeah.
to get it to do what you want. But it's, you know, it's really, really good. Now, the other one here is Amber. Quickly show you that. Again, as I was saying earlier on, it's based on the kind of, those of you that are old enough to remember the Soliner string machines and sort of even like the ARP Odysseys that were capable, you know, you recognise the sound instantly. It's the sort of 70s Jean-Michel Jarre kind of sound. Now, it's capable of that, but this, and I'll show you what I'm doing with this later on, for example, has a 4-band 4-man filter in it. So if you can imagine, you've got 4 frequency bands that you can move around, but you can modulate these all from different things. Okay, so the possibilities are pretty much close to endless. Okay, now sitting in Fusor, I can blend these together, but like I said with this one, all I'm doing is using strobe, right? But the reason why I'm using this, I don't know if you can kind of see this along the top here. We've got the different Fusor controls. So you'll see, for example, I can have my 3 synths, so I can click between them. I've also got effects for each of the synths, right? And I can then, you know, and remember, everything is completely automatable. That's the word. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay. And then we've also got what's it called? Mono mod, which is a 4-bank LFO. So it's 4 LFOs that we can use on top of everything in the synths already. Okay. But what I'm interested in here is Animator, right? Now, Animator is essentially 4 step sequences, right, in every Fusor. You can see along here we've got what they call engines. 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? And each one of these can be set up in various different ways. So the way I've got this set up for a moment is I've got this set up to trigger the step sequencer. If you listen to the bass line itself, which I can obviously, sorry, just got to do that again because it's here now. I mean, this is just, look. That's just a straight bass sound, stop it, right? Like that. Now, when you listen to the bass line itself, there's a kind of a pattern playing on here. Now, there's a twofold thing going on, right? What I've got is a basic pattern here, which I've programmed in, right? So you can kind of see the notes. It's a very, very simple step pattern. But in Fusor, if you look at the engine type, I've got 4 different ways I can use each one of these engines, right? So the first one is an arpeggiator. So if you've got experience with arpeggiators, essentially hold down a bunch of keys, it's going to play them all notes in a certain order, right? That's put very, very basically. Now, you've also got what I'm using here, which is called a note sequencer. So anybody out there remember the TB303? If you don't know what that is, educate. Do you know what I mean? TB303 is an incredible box. One of the things that made it really good was it had a little step sequencer on it that was really difficult to program because the buttons stick. They used to stick, so you get randomness. And now this is kind of replicating that. What you can see here is I've got different pitch steps. So every time a note is triggering, Animator is then triggering a pattern off that note, which is why you can hear it dancing like that. Now I'll show you the difference. If I switch it to the arpeggiator, we're getting a slightly different pattern. Now actually, if I bring that one up again, and this is what I kind of like about using these things, if I bring this in, it's giving me a slightly different bass feel. So we just mute these out. Sort of slightly more jacking. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Kind of feel to it. And let me just bring back up the note sequencer again.
Some more bouncy.
Sort of bounces around, absolutely. Yeah. Now the thing about this, if you look at the actual lane in Logic, there's nothing in it. Okay? Animator is triggering this note sequence on its own. So you hit play and it's doing its own thing, right? Which is pretty cool. And I'm just going to jump over the mod sequencer for a minute, and we're going to go to advanced, right? And advanced, just in case there wasn't enough for you, right, gives you total control over the step sequence, okay? Now not only that, but if you look down the bottom here, we've got up to 12 pattern memories. So what you could do, it's kind of old school, is set up different baseline patterns and then have them trigger the actual pattern themselves, if that makes sense. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So again, we talked about performance. Sometimes, and especially with certain styles of dance music, you want that looping, you want that kind of looped ability, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that gives it to you, right? Now, at the moment, we're in a 16-step, 16th note pattern, okay? But I can change this up. I can switch this by changing the clocking. So we can have 16 steps, however many steps we want, different speeds. Also, it's polyphonic. What that means is that you can run different pattern sequences at the same time to create polyrhythms. Okay? Haven't got enough time to do that now. Okay? But what I'm trying to say with something like this is you can it's got an immediacy to it. The bass sound is quite quick, but there's depth. So it's not something you're going to use for 2 minutes and then throw away. And I kind of, as I've been exploring it, I've been going, ooh, yeah, oh, hello, Right, notepad, write that down. That's a little drop in here. Now, last thing on here, the mod sequencer. Now, the mod sequencer, rather than working off of notes and things like that, enables you to then use the step sequence to control any parameter in any synth. So you could, for example, let that go around a minute. Is it going to come back? Okay, that's that sort of, there it is. It's the equivalent of the DJ record running out, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly. Vinyl crackle.
Vinyl crackle, yeah. So the thing is with this, with the mod sequencer, and I'll show you something with that in a minute. What we can actually do is set this up to control various different things. So it's capable of doing quite complex performance pattern mode stuff. You could use it, for example, to control the cutoff You could use it to control panning. There's lots and lots of things you can do with it. Okay. So to kind of move on and demonstrate that, let's have a look at this animated sound, which I've kind of got muted out at the moment. So it's got a slight old school vibe again. Let's just solo it up. Now, on this one here, there's quite a lot going on. Okay. What we've got is 2 synths being used. Okay. I've got strobe. Okay. Now, the reason why that's not in is because I've got this set up on the cut-off frequency. We should have. Where you gone? Where you gone? Okay, let me bring that one in again. I know he's in it. I know what it is. Now here's Cypher. So, I was saying to you earlier on about it's got this kind of FMness to it, which means you can get that slightly more belly, twinkly, nicey stuff that sometimes you can't really get with an analog synth. Okay, and again, if we bring this up, what you can see here, for example, is I've got various transmod going on. So we've got LFO going over here to the cutoff frequency. So I'm sort of pointing, you can't really see what I'm pointing at. Here we go. Let me zoom it in and bring it over. There you go. You can kind of see the cutoff moving on that. Okay. Now let's just work out why my main synth, there's always something, isn't there? Right? Let me work this out. Now I think I know why this is. So, Animator has 4 engines, right? Now each engine can be applied to individual synths, but we have this thing called the key map, and that's why it's not working, right? Now the key map enables you to route the Animator engine, as you can see, to one engine to say 2 different synths, okay? So for some reason, I've got one on here that for some reason isn't working. That's the problem with live, isn't it? Right, where is he? Where's he gone? So hang on, there he is. Turn him off. Let me just find it. There we go. There's the filter on him. Okay, now we might have to chalk this one down to I don't know. There's always one in here, hang on. No, that one just looks like he's disappeared. I mean, so there's somebody out there who can see what it is. He's now shouting busily at the screen, going, "It's that! It's that!" But yeah, for some reason that isn't working. Now I think that's probably to do with here it is. Right, at the moment the destination for this is actually set to just synth 2. Okay.
Right.
Now the thing is, with the key mapper, I can route it to 2. So if I put this onto key map, there it is. I didn't think it was sounding quite as good as it did earlier on. Right. Now that, right, that's wicked. That's what I want. Let me turn it down a bit now. That was what was missing. Okay. Now what we've got going on here is a couple of different sounds, and I'm using Animator to create a pitch sequence, right? So for example, so we can get like this, so I can change these notes around. See what I mean? Now, if I wanted to, I could speed this up. And all this kind of stuff. I think we can... Slow it down. Go for sort of a triplet feel to it. Now with that, if I bring that back in again with a beat, let me just... That's going to have quite a nice... I think it might have quite a nice feel. See what I mean? You can get that kind of nice little triplety ideas going on, and we've still got all the control. Oops, I can also turn it off. So, let me just bring back into this a minute. Now again, I'm using the note sequencer for this, and one of the issues that you sometimes get with, especially when you're working with analog step sequences, is the steps of fixed length, right? So what that means is on this one, I've got this on an 8th triplet, it's like that. But if you click across onto Shift, Duration, Repeat, I can change the size of the steps. Right? So I can make that smaller. Right? I can also repeat them. So let me do a 3. You get that kind of rat sort of flamming. That, you know, And at the moment, I've got one of these going to two separate synths. Now, there's nothing to stop me then from setting up, again, different patterns, different ways of doing things. Okay, now I'm going to quickly switch this back again. It's very easy to do that. And I'm just going to bring this all back in and just go back to my straight 16ths. Okay, so now that I've got it back to that, switch it back up to 16ths again. You know, and again, we could automate that.
Yeah.
So you could have like your breakdown section where you kind of slow it all down and then speed it all up again, you know? So just a couple of different things on there. Now, I'm going to come back in a minute and have a look at sort of a couple of things, but I want to just have a look at these pads. Now, what I've got with these pad sounds here, let me just solo this up. Now, that's quite a kind of 70s-ish sound, right? We've got essentially two versions of Amber running at the moment and a version of Strobe. Now, the first version of Amber is just providing the basic string. Strobe's the kind of the fizz that you hear coming in and out. And then you can hear there's a gated version as well. Now that's essentially been done again using Animator, but this time using the modulation one to essentially gate the volume, right? Now the reason why I'm talking to you about it rather than showing you is that, and I think the guys at FXpansion will kind of, if you go to the site, they'll say it, this thing sounds amazing, right? But it comes at a CPU cost, right?
Yes, that's what we spoke about briefly earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about this briefly earlier, and I'm running two Ambers here. Now, to give you an idea, Amber has two synth engines, right? It's got a synth engine and an ensemble engine. Both of them, as I understand it, are 96-note polyphonic, which means that one Amber is running 192 notes, right? So if you put two of them into a Fusor, that's 300 and loads,
yeah,
basically. So what's happening is that it's, on bless it, on the little laptop here, it's kind of having a bit of a funny moment about it. Yeah. So what I've had to do is freeze it. But you know what? It don't matter. If it sounds good, what I would probably do now is to print it out. You know, I'd print the sound down. Okay? So that kind of gives you a kind of a bit of a basic sort of look at it. Now, one final, well, not really final thing, I'm sure there's going to be more as I think through, is I want to have a look at, just let me reset that a minute. Can you hear now that this is interesting? Animator's changed key, right? The reason for that is, unless you have a note trigger, it comes in at C3. Now this is in a different key.
Yeah.
So what I would need to do, and if you can look at actually what I've got here, I've got a little note at the beginning.
Oh, I see.
So that's triggering it back round.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just run this through again. And also the other thing I like about this is because that note sequences, if it doesn't trigger it exactly on time, it's changing the pattern. So there's a randomness in it, which I think is very useful.
Yeah, most definitely.
Do you know what I mean? So, it's going to go back into, the smart controls. Now, if you look at what's going on here with what I've called animated, at the top here, we've got these kind of global controls called macros. So within Fusor, you've got 8 macros you can use to assign to as many controls as you want. And with Logic 10, we've now got this new thing in it called smart controls, which, by the looks of it, is something that they've brought out of, is it Mainstage? You know, their performance one, yeah. And what I've been able to do with this, and I sort of showed you earlier on with the baseline, is to assign macros to the different macros. See what I mean? Macros on my macros, right? And then with those assigned, it gives me all on this. So, going to kind of, once again, we're going to kind of go in and I'll solo up this sound here. Right, let's just kind of go back into this again, like this. Now, there's one thing about here, I'm going to make a slight, well, criticism's too strong a word, right? Maybe something that can be put in for release. If I bring in the reverb, Right, now, if I turn the verb size up, it goes silent, and then when I bring it up again...
So it's done in steps?
Yeah, I think it possibly could be that it's calculating it. I mean, again, let's be honest, I mean, this is pushing CPU. I mean, this is some powerful ace-sounding software, so I understand it, and I am being picky, but it would be really nice to be able to control that verb size and have, almost like you could, I mean, I've heard it before, where you can suck the reverb up. Fantastic for transition effects, you know, that kind of thing. But again, I'm just being picky.
Yeah.
Okay, so, bring that around again. There we go. And I've also got, again, if I bring up Fusor, what we've also got on here is, if you look down on the bottom right-hand side here, we've got the master insert effects. And I can bring these up now, and you can see that I've got 3 separate ones here. So we've got the delay, the reverb, and the compressor. And above them, there's 4 modulation slots for each, which is how I'm controlling these. So, for example, the delay feedback up to 150%. And then we can sort of, you know, because you can do all the kind of dub, jammy stuff. Go on. Right, and then you can kind of let that in, and then you know, you get the idea.
Very nice transition.
Yeah, so you can do loads of really nice transition effects with it. You know, so I mean, as a piece of software, it's going to reward you. The deeper you get with it, it's going to reward. You know,
I guess if you spend time with it, like
absolutely.
you say you have done, exactly.
You know, and the thing is, I mean, it's going to frustrate as well.
Yeah,
but that's all part of it.
Yeah, it's part of fun.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of very, very quickly through. I mean, there's a kind of a lot of stuff going on within that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I suggest with this that, in some respects, start with strobe's a great place to start, because I mean, I'm not, like I said, it's not complex. It doesn't mean it's not powerful. But it's quite a good one to start with, and it sounds really, really good. You know,
most definitely. We've got a couple of questions.
Yeah, cool.
So we've got a couple of guys, Midnight Channel and producer Kicker Das, have both asked about more kind of sound design in general. Yeah. Whether when you're designing sounds, you do it with kind of beats or loops going on in the background, or whether you just design sounds from scratch, really.
Both.
Yeah. Absolutely
both. It depends. I suppose it depends what you're trying to do. I mean, if you're using sound, or you're trying to create sounds that are working within a rhythmical context, sometimes it's quite nice to have a beat there. Sometimes though, it's quite nice working. Again, like I say, it's quite nice working without. So, for example, when I was doing this,
I guess otherwise you kind of fall within the context, don't you, a little bit? So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you know, my students will know because I talk about this a lot. With this idea of 16-bar hell.
Yeah,
you know,
we've all been there.
Yeah, you just sit in a loop for 16 bars for 2 hours, get bored, trash it, start playing a 16-bar loop. So anything that can stop you from getting trapped in that. So again, you know, with Fusor, what's fun about this, for example, is that because it's got all this step sequencing in it, it's almost like going back to the days of the old school analog modular, where you literally, you let it run itself. You know, it's sometimes like you don't feel like you're in control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which must be quite a nice feeling sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. I mean, the kind of, although it's, I mean, the analogy is a little bit like trying to fix the engine on your car at 70 miles an hour. If you know what I mean. It's that kind of thing where that ever so slightly out of control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So from that point of view, yeah, both.
Yeah. Well, I think we're kind of just reaching time. Guys watching at home, if you do get any other questions coming in, just make sure you post up in the comment section. The video will be archived pretty much straight away when we're finished. So any questions that come through, we'll try and get Paul to jump on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, a massive thank you for taking part.
No worries, mate. My pleasure. And you know, thanks all for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching. As I say again, the guys at Plugin Boutique are offering a 40% discount on the Dcam bundle. So head over to Point Blank Plus. You can check that out. And of course, stay locked to our blog and the Facebook and the YouTube channel as well. And we'll be back again next week for another Friday Forum. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.